Okay, this is for world history. We're going to start to discuss the decline of Tsarist Russia. So, the Tsars are going to decline early in the 1900s, and the Soviet Union will eventually become the name of Russia. However, not just yet. The Tsars will be remain in power until about 1917, 1919. But eventually people will start to embrace communism, and the revolution will happen, the Russian Revolution will happen, and communists will take over. But for now, we're going to talk about Alexander II, who is the last Tsar of Russia. In 1861, Tsar Alexander II issued the Emancipation Manifesto, which was a document that freed all of the 23 million serfs in Russia. The newly freed serfs had no money to buy land, and most of them were forced to work in poor conditions with little pay without their most basic needs being met. By 1900, around 85% of Russian people lived in the countryside and earned their living from agriculture. These peasants lived in extreme poverty and became disgruntled with the government and the upper class who had money and owned land. In the summer of 1876, Praskovia Ivanovskaya and her friend Galina Cherasovskaya went to work as agricultural laborers. The following are sections of Praskovia Ivanovskaya's recollection of her time there. At 4 in the morning, as the sun rays were just beginning to split over the steppe, the overseer would wake us, kicking the legs of those who wouldn't get up immediately. In the morning, we froze from the bitter cold dew, which drenched our clothing up to the waist. Staggering along, still half asleep, we worked as automatically as robots, gradually warming up a bit. At 10, we returned to camp for breakfast, which lasted around a half an hour. Despite the camp hubbub, some people preferred to nap instead of eating. Our food was rather poor quality, very plain and unappetizing. In the morning, they cooked us watery gruel made from wheat and water, with a dose of salt or buckwheat dumplings big as cobblestones. One or two of these would satisfy would satisfy the hunger of even the greatest glutton. The meal was poured into the wooden trough, from which they pulled the dumplings with long pointed splinters. We got the same modest fare for lunch and dinner. After our brief breakfast, we returned to work. As the day wore on, the heat became so intense that you would want to take shelter in any available patch of shade. The sun was so strong that the backs of most of the newly arrived vagabonds were practically covered with swollen blisters. Later, as their skin toughened up, the burns went away. During the busy season, there was no set limits to the workday. If the steward wished, it could last for 16 hours or more, with only an hour off for lunch. In the evening, after the sun had set, we returned to camp. Frequently, our evening talks ended with the peasants saying, "That's our fate, so it's been written," or "We're born, we'll die." In fact, we were rarely able to talk at all. After the day's work, our limbs shrieked with weariness. Our exhausted bodies demanded rest and peace. So there are two questions at the bottom. Remember, insert text box and answer those questions. Also, remember to fill out the Google form for attendance and hand everything in on course. Um, Please make sure that even though you are some people are going in and filling out the attendance form but not doing the work, you will be getting your grade will reflect that. You may be marked here, but then you get a 0 for your grade. That's not going to go over well. So make sure you're filling out both the Google form and doing the work and handing that in. All right. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good day.